Peace, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to Israel Doctrines Google Hangout. I'm your host, Carl Lambert, and you have now entered into our Hangout. And this show is entitled "In the Days of These Kings," a message from Jerusalem for the season. So, guess who we have with us today? I'm gonna let him, tell you who he is, and we're gonna get into the conversation. I bet y'all can't guess who it is, but anyway. Without further ado, my guest. You got the mic, bro.
Brother Carl. So, first, allow me to give all honor and praises to the Holy One of Israel, Yah Yisrael, Yah Yahweh, to his anointed son and servant, Ben-Ami, and the princes here, the ministers, crown brothers and sisters, all of the brothers and sisters around the world of the Israelite community, all those that are searching for truth and peace on this planet. I greet you in the holy tongue, Shalom Aleichem. I am Minister Ahmadiel, Sar Ahmadiel, Minister of Information and a spokesperson for the African Hebrew Israelites here at Jerusalem, living in Dimona, Israel, southern Judean region of the land of Israel, and what we fondly refer to as Northeast Africa, geographically, geopolitically in Northeast Africa. Glad to have you to accommodate us on the show, to reach out to the brothers and sisters at this time, a very, very critical time on the planet. And was just looking at things. These last couple of weeks, Brother Carl, have been rather difficult to watch. The unfoldings of the tribulation upon our people in the land of captivity, as we refer to America, or Babylon, modern day Babylon. For us, having lived in America, born and raised in America, the founders, the first generation that made the move out of the captivity beginning in 1967, based on Ben-Ami's vision that he received in '66. The arrival in the land of Israel in 1969, and the subsequent, we had numerous challenges. We had 20 plus years of friction with the state of Israel to secure our now permanent presence here. All of that gives us a perspective that is quite different from anyone who has neither ventured outside of the captivity, possibly even to visit foreign lands or to visit Israel or Africa, Eden as we prefer to call it, but certainly much different perspective for those of us who have permanently relocated. And I must remind our audience that we are the largest organized resettlement of our people in history. There are pockets, there are families, there are individuals who have made a relocation to Israel, and many into Ghana, West Africa. I've met quite a few there in Ghana. I've met quite a few in South Africa. But as an organized community, we are the largest in existence of former African located back to the continent. And so being here for the length of time that we have offers us a perspective that I don't think many can even begin to grasp. But it's painful on this side, looking back upon our people yet in the captivity, who continue to dwell in what Dr. King referred to as a burned house just a mere few months prior to his assassination. When houses are on fire, a fire chief has a couple of options. If he feels that he can stop out, then he'll pour as many resources as possible into putting the fire out, and he will send his men in harm's way to retrieve and to save people who are inside the structures. But at a certain point, a responsible fire chief has to, if the fire keeps burning, he's going to call it off and write off the house as a loss. And he may even have to forsake those that are inside because he can't risk the lives of his men. Now, maybe some of his men might, on their own volition, see a window in and hear the screams of someone inside and feel that he might be able to retrieve someone. And that's really on him at that. So what I'm saying is that it's time, brothers and sisters. I don't know what our family is waiting for, but it's been told to me sometimes what they're waiting for. They're waiting on something to come out of the sky. They're waiting on a Savior to come from on high, from in the heavens. They're waiting on the ships of Tarshish. The Lord, they're waiting. And in our perspective, we are given instructions, we are given visions, we are given solutions, and they come the Creator Himself, that He has blessed us, as it says, surely the Lord Yah does nothing but reveal His secrets to His servants, the prophets. Well, in this dispensation of time, the Creator's got some servants on the planet. And Ben-Ami was among that number. And in his yielding to the instructions that he received in 1966, which said it was time to begin the exodus of our people, and him moving on that, what can I tell you other than that it's been successful and that we have established ourselves in this land? And so with that as a backdrop and a model for what was accomplished, what has been accomplished, what is continuing to be accomplished in the face of all kinds of opposition and controversy and clamor and so forth, those men and women are to step out and establish the kingdom, which was our stated objective in 1967 and 69, arriving here. That was our stated objective, to establish the long-awaited kingdom of Yah on this earth. And so for us to hear our brethren to speak of wanting to wait for, I'm getting a little memo here. Can you hear me clearly, Carl?
Yeah, it's glitching every now and then, but
every now and then, yeah. Okay, we'll see how long we can finesse this out. It's rather dismaying and discouraging, and except for the fact instruct.
Yeah, you got a click happening right there.
I saw something pop up.
What is it? The connection that you know, the feed or the connection or something?
I don't have a diagnostic thing. It just every now and then pops up.
Well, it's all right. Go ahead. I mean, we getting the gist of it. People have to deal with the context. Hopefully, it'll get better though.
Okay. was saying, though, that it can be discouraging, except for the fact that when Moses instructed the children of Israel to go in and possess that land, the promised land, a land promised by none other than the Holy One of Israel, he also told them, fear not. Now, wait, we've had numerous attempts to discourage us, both in-house and out of the house. Now, we expect and anticipate the opposition from out of the house. That's to be expected. But internal opposition from within the house of the family of Israel, the community of Israelites around the world, that can be a little more disconcerting if we were to allow that to happen. But again, we just simply fall back on the idea that we were promised this land. We were promised our place at the head of the nations. And certainly these are those times. And we refuse to be discouraged. However, Brother Carl, and this is what I've been wrestling with this last couple of weeks, is that at some point, again, a good fire chief is going to have to cut his losses. And I'm saying that for me personally, as I watch the endless Facebook clips and YouTube clips of atrocity, killings, of police abuse, poverty. You know, I mean, frankly, Donald Trump was absolutely right in telling the people, you know, what more do you have to lose? Now, I don't know what source of false pride they may want to defend their existence in America, but if they in 2016 want to defend their existence in America, then that's not who I'm trying to reach anyway. That's not who we're trying to reach anyway, to try to convince them that they remain nothing but slaves in a captivity. So that's I'm not, if anyone wants to jump on and that I'm in any way a Trump supporter, that's completely left field. But he's speaking the truth relative to certainly. It really doesn't matter at this point, Brother Carl, if it's Republicans or Democrats. It doesn't matter what's getting ready to unfold. It's whatever the for our people. And we're simply saying that it's time. And for those who are waiting for some miraculous deliverance, something to come from on high, something to come out of the sky, something extraplanetary possibly, we don't see that. We feel that that is part of a Greco-Roman grave cloth that remains over the eyes and over the ears and clogging the perceptions and the interpretations, the correct perceptions and interpretations that we must have in order to be redeemed as a people in this day and time. And so my personal decision, I've arrived at this just in the last few days, is to not spend so much time. I don't need to see another video. And what I think really caught was a video of a Tampa police officer who took appears to be a young sister, out of the back of his patrol car in the police garage, laid her on the ground, had her feet and hands bound, and he then dragged the parking area to wherever I guess his lockup was. And I felt that to be, and it wasn't like there wasn't someone else, there was someone else on the other side of the garage in view that could have helped him to carry her, to bring her to her feet and to escort her in. But he drug her across the parking lot floor. And watch that is so intensely painful that this is where we have arrived in 2016. But our people continue to want to protest and march and seek for justice. In Yeshua's words, he said, we seek for figs among thistles and grapes among thorns. At this point, haven't we arrived at a point of discerning and understanding that America is an unjust society? Why should we think that we would ever acquire justice from an unjust land? And so if we keep in mind the reason why we were brought to America in the first place, it was to chastise us. It was to whip our behind so that we could understand the great nature or the great consequences of having disobeyed our Father. And so like all whoopings, at least those of us, and I know you yourself, brother, Arkansas, we come from the era where, you were still getting switched. And that switch was to cause us to remember some things about this relationship. And so if we recall why we were even dispatched to America in the first place, and when I say America, I'm not just limiting North America, the Americas, North, Central, and South Americas, Caribbean included.
1 second, please. 1 second.
Sure.
1 second. All right, people, we're gonna resume the show. We got to get the mic open. Man, see, boy, I tell you, people just don't know when to.
I'm with you.
Okay, we back. All right, well, let's resume the show.
Okay. I was referring to the idea of getting a chastisement, getting a whooping, good old-fashioned whooping with a switch, and keeping in mind that was the whole purpose of America in the first place. That was why we were dispatched into the lands of the captivity, into North, Central, and South America. This was a prophetic chastisement that we were under, which had an expiration date. It was a 400-year sentence. And I've weighed in before on this issue that those who are saying that 2019 is the end of the 400 period, for that 16, there were already decades worth of the African slave trade, those who were being captured from West Africa, being carried into the Americas, into the Caribbean, into South America, even into Europe. All that was part of that chastisement period in our view. So to wait on 2019 might put you a little bit behind time. And if you're trying to get a train or a plane, I think it'd be better if you arrived at the terminal a little early than wait to the last moment if you're serious about catching that connection. And so we, as I told you, the message was, in the days of these kings, a message from Jerusalem in this season. We are entering the holy day season. And of course, Israel, the Jewish family, is celebrating what they call Rosh Hashanah, the spiritual New Year, the beginning of the year, Jewish New Year. Not so. Not so. We don't buy into that. We don't wish anyone Shana Tova, Happy New Year. This is not the New Year. The New Year begins in the spring, in Nisan. which is spring here in the land, which is a perfect time in the cycle of things to begin to have new beginnings. So we understand that this is what we formerly actually called the memorial of the blowing of the trumpets. And it even goes further than that. It really wasn't a trumpet, so to speak. It was, in Hebrew, the name of the holy day is Shabbaton Tikron HaTruah. And the Truah was not really a trumpet. The trumpet was our acclamation, our lifting up our voices in praise of the Holy One of Israel, actually shouting and calling out his name. When the Israelites surrounded Jericho, when they surrounded Jericho and marched around Jericho's wall 7 times and then let out a great shout. What did they shout? Did they just go shouting like some barbarians? And no, they actually shouted y'all. And what we understand, the Ruah, the great acclamation that has to go forth on our part to reach the ears of the Holy One of Israel. And so it's a Shabbat, it's a Shabbat, it's a memorial of that particular blast that was to go forth, that particular communication, that particular call. I witnessed just, again, another Facebook posting of a lot of children that seems to be at some university, and they're all in a big circle and they're praying. And it's a great little prayer, and the brother's leading the prayer. And at the very end, he says, in Jesus' name. And so in our understanding of things, in our understanding of what Moses instructed about being mindful, being circumspect, and not letting the names of other gods be heard upon our lips, all of that prayer was in vain because he nullified it at the end by calling upon Jesus. It wasn't a Jesus on the planet 2,000 years ago. Jesus is a name that is Greco-Roman in every context. And it nullified what, because prayer is communication. And so once we understand the sacredness of this name, Yah Yahweh, Yah Yisrael, Yah Yaakov, Yah Shaddai, when we understand the sacredness of the name and understand that all along that we had access in hallelujah, and that was coming forth from our, but we never made the connection. But we have to return back to the of that name and the power that's incorporated in that. And so this season reminds us of that and leads us, of course, into the season of Yom Kippur. So it's a very, very critical time. It's a time for introspection and consideration. It is not a time to be celebrating a new year. New Year, people tend to drink and get tipsy and lots of noise and music and folly. This is not that kind of a season. Shabbat seasons were for Shabbatons, as they are known, were for meditation, were for consideration, were for inclining our ears to hear a message. And in this season and time, Brother Carl and our family out there, we need a message of deliverance. We need a message of redemption. And so 50 years out of America, 50 years since Benjamin's vision, and come this coming May, we'll celebrate 50 years since the exodus of our people out of America and into West Africa, into Liberia. 50 years gives us another perspective. And personally, looking at the conditions of a people and seeing the great disrespect, enough. And my focus, my mission, my purpose, my objective, in coordination with what my role is as Minister of Information and as a spokesperson for the community and as a liaison to our communities in South Africa and the Congo, I have to devote more and more of my time to what's happening on this side of the Atlantic. I don't see the sense in continuing to reiterate what has been my message, which is simply the message of the revelator saying, "Come." I don't say in 2016 when things have gotten to this point, and when we see the unfolding of numerous prophetic references, and of course my title of and in the days of these kings is a direct reference to Daniel's interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's vision. Daniel 2:44, and it being shall the God of heaven accept. In 2016, who might this be referring to? Who are these kings? In our view, when you look at the fact that he was talking about that great beast and talking about that devolution that occurred from ancient Babylon to Greece to Medo-Persia, Rome, and then of course by that time the Roman Empire had split, and just like that beast down by the thighs, it had split. The Byzantine Christian Empire of the East and the Holy Roman Empire of the West. And then it devolved into the partly iron, partly clay feet. And it speaks of them as kings. And so that's, in our view, and most biblical scholars acknowledge the fact that it was a reference to the European unification of European nations and powers. And America, an offshoot of that Europe-American idea. And so it's all in that family. And in the days of these kings, a very small word, but a very critical word for understanding what it's referring to. Doesn't say after. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven establish a kingdom. Not after. And so it's saying that there would be a transitionary period where both those kingdoms and the kingdom that the Creator was going to establish would be in simultaneous existence. And so when we look at those kings, and we can name them now, you've got of course Queen Elizabeth, who continues to sit, on the throne representing the so-called United Kingdom. You have the kings of Spain and the Netherlands. Don't be fooled by these nations considered representative democracies and liberal democracies now. These are of what are monarchies. These were kings that sat over these, and many of them still retain the symbolic headships of kings and queens and royal families. They may not have direct control as they did in the past of different affairs, but still we're talking about those nations, and there's no hiding that fact. And so days of these kings established his stuff, which would never be destroyed. At what point do we think that's going to materialize? And what would it look like? What would it sound like? What type of government structure would it be? In fact, kingdom is a government structure. And if it's not governed by the principles and guidelines of the Holy One of Israel, if they are not men and women who are governed by these godly principles, then I don't know what a kingdom of Yah could possibly be. But do we expect the kingdom to descend from heaven as it was metaphorically related in Revelation about streets of gold coming down out of heaven? Are we really expecting gold? Imagine what a street of gold, especially on a rainy day. Are we expecting no more rain and no more snow in certain cycles? These are metaphorical references. So Yeshua did give us a key as to what to expect. He said the kingdom would be like a mustard seed. Very, very small seed in terms of, really, the head of a pin. But it ultimately becomes the largest of all the herbs that grow in the fields. And it's naturally, it is good and healthy for the nations. But I'm at a point, Brother Carl, personally, where I don't need to see any more of the violence of again, the disrespect and the dehumanization of our people. I'm troubled by that, and our energies have been shifted. Our energies have been shifted from attempting to resurrect our peoples in the captivity to preparing places for the remnant that may be able to escape in this coming season. So our efforts have been on the continent of Africa, as we know to be Eden or paradise, Eden, in the what we call the Edenic lands. Not all the Israelites were scattered off of the continent, moving down into Africa, deeper into Eden, and then, of course, being carried away from West Africa. That was you and I history. That's you and I history. But there are numerous ethnic groups and strains and peoples and identities across Africa, from the Lemba in South Africa, even the Zulu, who call themselves the people that came from heaven. The Ashanti and the Ga people of Ghana, the Bassa tribe in Cameroon, of course, Beit Israel in Ethiopia, numerous people, the Puel in Kenya. Many of these are Hebrews, and they've been scattered. The Yoruba and Igbo in Nigeria. These are our brothers and sisters here on the continent. The prophet, or in the book Nehemiah, the chapter refers, their kings were us for our sins, and that the land that we were given would be given unto them. They wax rich by virtue of having control of those lands. That's Africa. That's Africa. And so we can't look at situations so myopically as to think that only those who ended up in North America are part of that family that constitute Israel, the children of Israel. It's much broader than that. And on that note, and I'll definitely be allowing you time to ask me some questions, so be considering of that, my brother. But when we look at a messianic personage and those who are yet expecting a messianic to come, and I would ask, well, how do you see it? And again, they would go to the scriptures that he will come in the heavens, and some references on a cloud. And we would simply say, well, when you think about the Hebraic context of that, it's not talking about a cloud or in the sky. It's saying elevated. It's referring to elevated, high, on high. And then when Yeshua said, my sheep shall know my voice, stranger they will not. It lets us to know which of the organs that we should be emphasizing that would help us to discern the presence of this messianic personage. Rather than to be looking for someone, we should be listening to someone. My sheep shall know my voice. And so it's a message that would verify the messianic personage. And what would that message be if the message wasn't come out of her? If that message wasn't to return back to the land? And so for us, Ben-Ami is that Messianic personage. And we have to put it in another perspective. It can't be in the perspective, again, of some magical, mythical, mystical event. It's very, very down to earth when you consider that all of the kings of ancient Israel, all of the prophets of ancient Israel, all of the priests of ancient Israel, all of the elders even of ancient Israel were all considered to be a Messiah. Meshikim in the plural, Mashiach in the singular, and Meshikim in the plural. And so we view Ben-Ami as that Messianic personage dispatched unto us to give us direction in this dispensation of time. And what has been established here, and the 5 decades of work that Ben-Ami put into laying this foundation for this kingdom has been done. And you can consider this to be a social experiment in the establishment of a people who have been able to accomplish phenomenal things as a people in the face of opposition. And so when you look at Ben-Ami in the sense of being a social engineer and an architect, a social architect, what he has accomplished is the establishment of the foundation of a new world order, a truly new world order, a new civilization. And so we just simply at this point have to build on the idea, have to build on the institutions, expand the institutions, grow the idea. But the model for community development, the model for the existence of relationships and families and order and so on, in a way that the mindset, the dietary regulations, the clothing, the music for a new civilization, the foundation has been laid, while yet people are waiting for something to manifest on an otherworldly plane. And we feel again that's a great smokescreen and deception. That the people remain under such a nation, such a mythical option that keep them passively waiting while they're overcome by the smoke of the great fire that's burning all around them. And so it's painful to watch, but as watchmen, we sound the alarm, we give the instruction. If they're not followed, well, as Ezekiel said, our people will perish. But if we did not raise our voice to say, come out of her, to say, hey, think of it this way, consider that, try this, do that, forsake that. If we didn't do that, then our people would still perish, but we would perish along with them for having not been responsible watchmen. And so fire chief has to say there's no more that we can do. We have to exit. Now we'll be outside waiting with the equipment to give you oxygen. For those of that what was called a feeble remnant who escaped, we'll be here preparing a place, preparing a way on this side of the Atlantic. But we are consciously paring down our staff on that side, our businesses, our presence, out of necessity. Out of necessity. It's that kind of time. And we don't see great numbers. We've never seen where the Creator has used numbers. If anything, over the history of Israel, it's always been a very, very small number. Gideon and his 300. There were not the multitudes of those that left out of ancient Egypt. Most of the Israelites remained back in Israel. Remained back in Egypt. And some of them, when they heard that the Pharaoh's army had been destroyed in the Red Sea, they got their hat and started leaving from the west. Some of them said, well, we don't need to be here when they get back because they're going to be mad at us when word gets back. But it was never any great numbers. Talk about Elijah and taking on the prophets of Baal. There's never been any great numbers that were enlisted and brought into this struggle. And so why would the Creator change now? If it was about numbers, it seemed that we would easily be able to attribute the victory to the fact that we had great numbers. So perhaps he's got enough now. Who knows? But you don't wait till the last minute to prepare to get to the airport. You never know what'll happen at the airport. You might have an accident. You might have a blowout. And you timed it so you get to the airport just on time. That's not very intelligent. Not intelligent at all. And so in any way that we can, in any way possible, the objective has been to say, now is that time, and not to wait. To have those bags packed is literally Benjamin in one of his latter messages. And in fact, the last message to our family on that side was specifically, pack your bags and put them by the door. And that was 2-3 years ago. So, Brother Carl, just some of the things that I've been personally contemplating. I would like to, in the next, maybe later in the week, to arrange for one of our priests to give you a complete prophetic understanding of how we interpret these holy days, these particular holy days coming up. Shabbaton, Kron Hatrua, and so our family there can gain a perspective for how we observe them and how we interpret them. And I think it would be beneficial to the entire family to hear that. Again, it's a much different viewpoint from this side than that side. We're in Jerusalem. We're in the Holy Land. We're in the Tower. And if anyone wants to downplay our presence here and downplay the leadership of Ben-Ami, I would think that they should consider, did we think that we just stumbled up on something here by chance, and when those were saying that it wasn't the time and we're too early? Well, those arguments have lost their valid validity at this particular point. And so I think it's time for everyone to make a conscious and sober consideration of, again, what time it is, and ask ourselves, is this house on fire, and what options do we have? Again, most people who die in a fire don't die from the fire itself. They die from the effects of smoke inhalation. And so America is such a toxic environment, socially, spiritually, morally. What could we possibly be waiting for to make the move that we know that we need to make? The prophetic direction of our people, come out. And even from my perspective, having made the move out, having uprooted and stabbed up here in this land, part of the coming out is that I'm out relative to my energies and the energy that I spend in attempting to reach back. I have to exert energy to continue to build this world, this civilization on this side. The brothers and sisters in South Africa who need guidance, the brothers and sisters of the Congo who need guidance at this very hour, very difficult times for both of those countries. But the light was to go forth from Jerusalem, not from Chicago, not from New York. God forbid, Yah forbid, from Harlem. Someone said that Harlem is the new Jerusalem. Yah forbid. I couldn't fathom the possibility. But the light from Jerusalem is what has got to go forth. And we're talking about a lifestyle. We're talking about an intelligence and knowledge base, some instructions. And so with that, Brother Carl, I just wanted to my heart. And so again, anything that you might want to, any specific questions you might have, and if I can answer at this time, I'd be happy. Toda, Selah.
Yeah, we're talking about in the time of these kings. So, can you give a basic outline of who you all say the kings are and where they're located and everything? I know you spoke of Europe, but can you be a little bit more specific?
Yeah, hold on a moment. I know just recently I updated my list of who those kings were. Let's see here. We're
Well, let's also deal while you're looking for that. Hopefully, you can, while you're looking for that, we can deal with the fact you was speaking on the Messianic perspective. I understand you stated Jesus is not a name that you not too fond of, and you dealt with the Hebrew name. What sense do you see the layout? Because it says stone that was cut out without hand,
right?
And then it also speak on that stumbling stone, that rock of offense in the biblical text. So how do you see that? Because it could be a stone of stumbling for us, coming from the sky, or what perspective and everything. So if you could speak on that.
Well, the when we look at the when it gives us the in 42nd, 43rd verse of second, that's talking about that those toes, feet, partly clay, partly iron, and we know that if anyone is a metallurgist and dealing with metals, and that was what the great beast was composed of, different forms of metal. At a certain point, you know that our clay don't mix. They don't bond together. So it's obviously a weak foundation that this entire structure is standing upon. And so that structure, as we see it, is the Euro-Gentile civilization, and going back to ancient Babylon, ancient Medo-Persia, ancient Greece and Rome. But the evolution of that was certainly what we experience today, in the form of the European Union, formerly known as the European Economic Community, EC, and the Treaty of Rome that established it. And the
You breaking up a little bit.
Okay, let me close something that might help it.
Okay.
We see the prophetic revelations, the prophetic unfolding of the coming together of the European Union was a sign of strength, the creation of a big, huge trading bloc. The weaknesses in terms of the Brexit vote. The Netherlands is possibly considering exiting. Germany is a strong economy, but Greece is weak. Portugal is on near bankruptcy, etc. The friction with the migrants coming out of Turkey and Syria into Europe, and the great political turmoil that it put those countries up under, and economic strains, and the racism back them, partly weak, partly strong. And so then that's when it gets to that point of in the 44th verse of saying, and in the days of these kings. Now, the stone cut out without hands is simply an acknowledgement that the establishment of this kingdom would not find its authorization, it would not find its validity, its legitimacy, would not stem from any of the institutions of man. The United Nations would not be the body that would sign off on our legitimacy, on the legitimacy of the kingdom. It would not be by virtue of those types of means and channels by which this kingdom would be established. So, but nevertheless, it challenges that. You know, it would be a time when the education, the knowledge of this new world order, this new idea, the knowledge of Yah would challenge the knowledge of their world, when the diet of this world, this new world, would challenge the diet of that old world. And so it would be, in fact, a very clear time of judgment on the planet. And so this is that manifestation. That's our how we see it at a particular point. It is the kingdom at its development on the planet. It would not certainly be these nations that were in existence would certainly not welcome our presence and say, oh, great, we've been waiting, because they realize, those who really understand the prophecies, and those who really understand the dynamics of what is taking place and what should be taking place at this time on the earth, they know that our eyes is their demise. And so you got to know they're not getting ready to welcome their, and certainly they're not going to publicize it and to publicize it on CNN or any other networks. Every now and then you might get a little wind of it, but you're not going to read about this new world order in the New York Times, because it actually represents their end. And so that's the war. And the war is not a war that we'll fight with F-16 planes, but it's a war of doctrine. It's a war of words. It's a war of ideas, a war of standards, a war of philosophies. But nevertheless, it has all of the casualties, all of the potential for loss of, as does any other war. And so, but we've been waging it now for 5 decades. 5 decades we've been engaged at this particular level. Not to say, not to denigrate or to deny the great sacrifices, the great foundation that was laid by the Nat Turners and the Denmark Veseys and the Harriet Tubmans and others who ventured out, the great Hebrew teachers, Israelite teachers, Bishop C.H. Mason, the Prophet William S. Crowdy, certainly our brother in New York, the Commandment Keepers,
Matthew Wentworth.
Matthew Wentworth, Rabbi Arnold Josiah Ford, and others, the Marcus Garvey. All of them had pieces. All of them had a role to play, and many of them simply were fulfilling what they could in their dispensations of time. That there was a point in which it wasn't time yet. That there was such a thing as, it could have been said that it wasn't time. But if it wasn't time, and if this wasn't the time of the kingdom, then what are we doing here? Because this land is on record as spewing you out. You know, the same forces that drove us out would certainly have been sufficient to keep us out until as we would say, the appointed time. And so I think our presence alone is a testament that it's something to take to, and at least to make an investigation before being quick to say, no, it ain't time, and no, Ben-Amin's not the one, and so forth. And again, going back to the idea of that Messianic personage, what was the message, the great message and mission of the Messianic personage? What was it to be? It was to raise up the Messianic people, a Messianic nation. Israel, the nation, was the Messianic people. Where you have thousands, and you can't have thousands before you have hundreds, and you can't have hundreds before you have 10, and you can't have 10 before you have 1. And so we simply are saying that Ben-Ami was that one, and he has fulfilled his objective in, again, raising up the nation of Israel, which becomes that Messianic people. He was like Yeshua, sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It wasn't about anything magical. It was
breaking up.
Did you clear up yet?
Yeah, we cleared up.
Yeah, Yeshua had no magic wand that would allow him to be able to transform the masses of the people in some mystical way. He had to teach the people. He had to give them guidelines and standards. And again, he came like Moses in their own dispensations of time. All the prophets had their own dispensations of time and their own challenges of those eras. I like to always say that should a Moses figure come in this dispensation of time, you have to just imagine that one of the commandments would be, thou shalt not smoke or use other tobacco products. That would just make sense in the context of what Moses was trying to do in terms of setting life and death before the people. And so, but yeah, brother, that's how we interpret it. That stone cut out without hands that would smite the beast on its feet, and would cause all of that to come crumbling down. We represent that. The presence of Israelites, the awakening, the coming together of our people, and the commitment that's required to build. When we come together in that manner, that becomes that stone, and it is the force that is actually in terms of the great redemptive, corrective forces, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the floods, the fires, the economic and political instability. Look at the choice that our people have been left to. Look at what it has distilled down to in this election. It's pitiful. It's pitiful, and but it's also a sign because for the ignorance of those who would support a Trump and the gun those who would think that Hillary Clinton would be much of a difference. That's a reflection of the electorate. And I would simply say they get what they deserve. If you really think that that's the choice that affects us or that is before us, we've come to a really dead end as a people. If that's what's going to determine our future. And so we voted with our feet 5 decades ago, and our being here, our existence, not in the sense of we're not a ragtag, run down people here. We are proud, very, very well endowed spiritually, morally, in terms of the knowledge, putting forth what we're sharing with the other nations, our diet, our culture. All this has value, and if we're able to see value and measure value in terms of these kind of criteria, people would understand that, oh, you all made a good deal. You all made a good deal. Because when we look at the direction that our people, you might have cars and homes and $1 million salaries for the ball players and what have you, but look right up under the surface and you can see the pain and the broken families, the immorality. All that's deception. All that's deception. And we see the direction that things are heading in there. Whereas in the world that we're building, again, this is a mustard seed kingdom. It starts off small, but it grows. There's a process by which this growth would occur.
Well,
and it was a growth that had to be based and predicated on some faith in the beginning. It's easy now because you can see it. You can see the growth.
Let me ask you, if anybody wanted to have a dialogue with you all about this, what would be the process in which sitting down at the table and talking about this with you all?
I mean, you've got my contacts. You could forward such a request to me. I would make it my business. If I couldn't personally do it, we would dispatch someone who could. We could all kind of different forms now. We could do it over Zoom or other different platforms that would allow us. And if it's face to face, which I definitely would prefer, it could be coordinated. We host our brothers here. We've been happy to host brothers and sisters here in the land to sit down and talk and read together. I think again, by being here,
you breaking up a little bit still.
Yeah, nothing like being here. You got to come and see this. Let us go up. Let us go to the Galilee. Let us go to Jerusalem. Let us go to the places in this land. Let's go down to the sea. Spend some time on the shores of the Sea of Life. The Sea of they call it the Dead Sea. In that healing water. Spend time with your brothers and sisters here. Get to know us personally. Taste this food. Look at the farm and put your hands in the soil. We would be happy to accommodate such a gap. Some of the different unity Shabbats. I've been to Charlotte. I've been to Los Angeles. Been down to Miami. I've visited our community members. I've got a few others I would like to touch base with when I'm there. But I don't come to the U.S. very often. I come very strategically. But if an invitation was sent, if an opportunity was made for such a coming together, I would honor that. I've always had a personal commitment to say any invitations I try to accept because I figure that Yah has placed something there that would be beneficial for someone.
All right, well, I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation and everything, but I know, time difference and stuff. may be a little strain on the conversation. I just wanted to get something out there and a lot of people to hear, you know, your perspective and everything. As you said, you're trying to hook up something to speak with someone else. We could go in greater details at that time and stuff. But I think this is enough to
we get one of our priests to come and to talk with you.
Most definitely. I think this is enough to wet their whistle. So
okay.
Once people get an opportunity to see and hear it, they're gonna have a lot to say and a lot to you know, bring to the table on it. So we'll see what the reaction of the people are and allow that to you know, help us navigate the next move through the currents. Okay. So
I look forward to it, brother. I look forward to it.
So I appreciate the conversation, the dialogue.
We appreciate your effort to keep Israel doctrine moving across the airwaves so that our people can hear and be exposed to a new way of thinking.
Most definitely.
Keep it up.
Most definitely. We got some things that we got to talk about and deal with, because that rock is supposed to spread. Once it breaks, the image is supposed to spread throughout the world. So, you know.
Right. That's key. That's key. It has to happen. Like there's it's a process, and most certain stages and certain elements can have to be brought at certain times. Just to give you a quick example, you know, people like to quote, you know, the exceedingly great army and so forth. When you read Ezekiel, I think it's 37, very carefully, it says that, you know, that those bones were the whole house of Israel. It said, I will bring bones into the land of Israel. And then it says, and then will I sprinkle clean water. Because I think you understand that clean water refers to doctrine.
Yeah, the word.
Process. Right. The process was that they had to be brought into this land. And then some of them are still, I'm talking about our family there. Some of them like to still quote, if my people who are called by my name and so forth, then I will heal their land. No. The healing of the land is not the land that you might be in Virginia or in California. The healing of the land is here in this land. And so it's got to be in its proper context. Just can't grab something and think that that's, you know, but again, it's a process. I'm working now at a assembly line. You can't inject certain parts and phases before you put in all the things that go in, you know, in the earlier stages. So it's very critical. But we can sit down and talk about those things. My thing is that I don't think we have long to do that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, at whatever time we got to initiate it. So.
Okay. Like I said, I'm game. I'm open, and we're structured where we can arrange for that. We can answer that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say peace and get back with you later.
Likewise, dear brother.
All right.
Have a blessed day here.
Okay. You do the same. Peace to y'all out there listening.
Shalom to all the family out there as well. Shalom, shalom.